Morning, guys. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So this week's tutorial, we will be looking at some of the draft reports submitted by you guys in each tutorial session. So today I'll only be able to cover one group. The feedback that I'll provide for them will be similar to the types of feedback that I'll be providing for all groups. Even if I don't make a tutorial video on it, I will make the same comments and do the same sort of amendments in your Word documents, and then I'll send them all back to you guys during, hopefully by the end of this weekend, so that you can make the necessary changes. I missed my class on Wednesday. Okay, Rahul, it's okay. You're part of Wednesday session. You are one that was supposed to be with Joshua Lorima, I believe. Oh, okay. Yes, he told me in advance that you would be joining my session, so yeah, there's no problem. I'll make sure that your attendance is marked. You're also from the same session, Abdul? Okay, if you're, oh, okay. That no worries. So this week I'll be looking at, I believe, Ethan. Project. It was the drone one. So I'll be using this as an example. I want to make it clear that it's by no means am I singling out anybody or trying to make an example of them. I'm just using theirs as an example of the type of feedback that I'll be providing. It's nothing personal about anything that I say or any of the comments that I give. I just, hopefully you take it as constructive. That's the way that I intended to come across. But if it isn't, I'm truly sorry. Okay, so before we start looking at the example, I want you guys to understand how we check for similarity index. And that's basically a plagiarism percentage. So plagiarism is a big problem that universities all over the world face. It discredits a lot of people's academic career. And it's something that we try to stamp out as early as possible when we're studying at uni. So USB uses a software called Turnitin. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with it. You might be one of your first times coming across it. So Turnitin basically takes your submission and then cross-references it with everything that's already been uploaded to USB servers, the internet. It's a really, really powerful program. And it'll pick up sentences or paragraphs or phrases that you have directly lifted from another source. It'll provide that source and give you a percentage similarity. So the acceptable percentage is from 0 to 15. Anything above 15 is a fail, automatic fail. For engineering, we go from 0 to 15. For other courses, it may be 0 to 20. But I know for this unit specifically, it's 0 to 15. So if you have submitted your draft report and seen the similarity index is higher than 15, you have to make a lot of amendments and rephrase or rewrite whole passages just to make sure that your index isn't above 15 anymore. Is that clear? It's okay for now for the draft report because this isn't marked, but I just wanted to make it clear that before we even mark your project, if the index is higher than 15%, you'll automatically fail. So we'll be looking at Mohammed Altaf and his group. He's the group leader. He made the submission. They got a 56% Turnitin, which is unfortunate. But if you go to the feedback studio, hopefully you can all see my screen. It'll highlight sections or paragraph or passages which are directly lifted from other sources. So 36% of your plagiarism is coming from a link, springer.com. And you can see just the percentage of it that's directly taken from that source. Now, it may be that you have actually rephrased it, but it just so happens that the words still pick up as plagiarism. We will expect you guys to rephrase it so that this doesn't happen again. Is that clear? Members of the group, Ethan, Nabila, I believe. Okay, so that's number one comment straight off the bat. Check your plagiarism and try and rephrase if you can. Great. So I will now share the report. Sorry. Okay, are you all able to see my screen again?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So this is the project, a remote control aircraft with camera. Group members, I just expect whoever the group leader is, just put next to the name GL, so we know. Declaration of originality. In the final report, that'll be important, but for the draft, it's not necessary at the moment. Acknowledgement. This is just a, not a warning, but more of a note. When doing technical reports or scientific reports, we try our best to leave out religious views or ideologies out of anything that we publish, just because, like for myself, I don't have any issues with this since I'm a Christian, but for other people reading your work, they may stop or they may discredit your work straight off the bat just because of your religious views. Okay, I'm not saying that they will, but there's a possibility. So that's why we try our best to try and leave it out of anything technical that we write. So just bear that in mind in the future. For me at the moment, I don't have any issue with this, so I won't what you call that, advise that you remove it, but just keep that in mind. Abstract, it will be very important in your final report. Abstract, this one may need a bit more expansion, a little bit more explanation, but for now, this is fine. I can see that the formatting is a major issue at the moment with a lot of these reports. So I'm trying to put together a tutorial video where I talk about formatting and the different ways that you can format to make it a lot easier for you. Automatic formatting built into Microsoft Word. So hopefully you guys can take advantage of the program. But I understand that this is a draft, so. Okay, getting into the details. I liked your introduction. I feel like it's a good entryway, segue into what the project's going to be on. I feel like it's very informative. It piques my interest right off the bat when you start talking about what this project needs to be able to achieve. My only comment about the introduction is you may want to talk a little bit about how you went about the design process. Just a little short paragraph talking about the types of design processes that you used to come up with the final design and the tools that you employed along the way. So namely AutoCAD, if you used Excel to help develop calculations, just those kind of things that you mentioned right at the beginning. Introduction is just supposed to let the reader know what they to expect throughout the rest of your project. Okay, that's the sole reason why we have an introduction. It's not supposed to be an information dump where you give them so much information that they're overloaded before they start. This is a good example of an introduction to do. So guys, I commend you for your introduction. Just maybe just add that little bit about the design process. Is that fair? Set. After that, we come to our problem statement. Now, the problem statement, I don't have any, well, I do have a few issues with it. Firstly, it starts off very broad. And I know that I've said that you start with a very broad problem, but you have to narrow it down into the very specifics of the problem that you're facing. Okay, so the military having issues to do missions which are difficult in difficult terrain and stuff, dangerous areas, that's a very nice, big, broad issue. So that's what my comment is. You started nice and broad, but you need to zero in on the actual details of the issue and why a drone is the best solution. I know that it says in the topic that you have to design a aircraft or a drone with a camera, but you have to imagine that we aren't the ones who gave you the project, okay? We are the client and you are trying to sell us that this is the best possible solution moving forward. You have to design a drone. So in your problem statement, you may want to mention that you have looked into other avenues. Yeah, you've done, you know, cost analysis and all that. And whoever it is, maybe the military or the government has given you guys a grant of so much money to develop a drone, and namely a drone that is compact, that must be able to be transported. Okay, you would build that into your problem statement. Again, you started very, very nice and broad, but you have to narrow it down into the specifics of the problem that you'll be facing. Different aspects of the problem. If it's not just the terrain that's restricting you, you have limitations like cost, limitations like technology, limitations like materials. Okay, you have to mention those all in your problem statement. It'll help build a very cohesive problem. So you might just want to work on that. And this goes for every other group, okay? You have to make sure that your problem statement, it can start broad, but it has to come down to a very specific problem and a very specific solution that you need. So the problem statement is basically identifying the very specific problem, and the design brief is what's the very specific solution? Or what do you need to do moving forward with your design process? The only point that I would make about your design brief is straight off the bat, I can kind of see that you guys have already made up your mind about what the final solution will be. Okay, and that sort of defeats the purpose of the whole design process, because the design process is supposed to be taken from point A and you work all the way through to point B. You don't start at point A, have the issue, and you already know what point B is going to be, so you try and make everything fit along the way. Okay, so my comment is, how did you know that your final design has to come with 4 propellers, 4 legs? How did you come up with those exact numbers? How did you figure that that's the best design out there? If this is through research, that's fine. But you've already limited your design to having 4 propellers and 4 legs, which isn't taking into advantage the whole design process. Is that understood?
It's true.
Okay. So design brief and then background research. The research that you guys conducted, I thought was very extensive. I haven't seen another group yet that's done this amount of research, even though that the majority of this came back with a plagiarism count. You just have to reword or pick out the relevant information. Is all of this information really necessary? One comment I will make, especially for this project, is never underestimate the value of a picture and a short caption, as opposed to a long paragraph, a long descriptive paragraph. You have to remember who your audience is. All along, you're trying to tell a story, okay? Your audience isn't always scientific. They're not always with a scientific mindset. They're not always engineering, have an engineering background. Your audience may just be the layman, or your audience may be the military in this case. or your audience may be a investor, okay? Do they really care about all the intricate details and the technical information written in a paragraph? Would it be more beneficial to show a picture and give a brief description of what they're to see, and then maybe a short technical description for those with a technical mindset? So that's my only comment about your presentation of your information. Pictures are always better than words. Okay, picture always better than words. Effective use of subheadings. I see you guys have used subheadings, yeah. I recommend all of you guys use subheadings. Subheadings help to break up the information into manageable chunks rather than 5 or 6 pages of pure background research. There are also sections here where it's obvious you've copied and pasted from internet source, you know, breaks in sentences and all that. I believe that this is just your draft, this is your compilation of information, and you haven't actually started writing your literature review. Is this correct, Ethan or Nabila? Is this just the compilation of information before you start? Oh, okay, good. All right. Oh, that's fine. But as it stands, there are a lot of changes that need to be made to the background research. Not so much the content, just the way that it's formatted and the structure of your sentences. There are also sections in your literature review where I feel you have gone too in-depth and you've gone too technical to a point where it becomes useless because there's no way that you can actually deliver on the technical aspects that you're talking about. There's another group that I've looked at that they started to do torque calculations and motor sizing and stuff. And it sounds really technical and it sounds really good when you write it out. But if it's wrong, you you look kind of like an ass. So if you're confident with the technical information that you're presenting and you know that it's right, then do it by all means. But this is just a design project, okay? You don't have to do any analysis or anything like that for this project. So don't go too overboard with the technical, doing calculations and trying to motor size or all those kind of things, okay? It's just the design concept that we're interested in. As you can see, this has gone really, really in depth, okay, down to the megahertz and all that. You may want to include that in your project, and that's fine. But again, you're adding a level of complexity, a level of technicality to your project that if it's wrong, your whole thing kind of falls apart. Like you can see what I mean when I say big blocks of sentences, big blocks of words, and you know it becomes a task or a chore almost to try and read all this and understand what you mean. Just a simple picture and a caption or a brief paragraph explaining what the image is more than sufficient. The design criteria. I recommend that for design criteria, you use bullet points because bullet points are a lot more, they deliver information a lot more clearly than writing it in a paragraph. Also, I don't feel like your criteria, you've been specific enough as to what exactly it needs to be able to accomplish. Okay, if you're going to design a drone, the major issue that drones have is the cost. I mean, we can develop the technology, technology already exists, but it's the sheer cost of implementing it. That's a major barrier in its implementation in all different aspects of industry as well as military use. So I feel like a major criteria that you would look at is the cost. How much will it actually cost to create? In your materials that you mentioned before, you talk about fiber reinforced composites. Now, those are incredibly expensive. And it's also a technology that we don't have readily available here in Fiji, I believe. So a cost analysis would be very beneficial to your project, and I recommend that you guys include this in your design criteria. Again, if you are going to state a budget that you have to work towards, mention that in your problem statement. Is that clear for this group and for any other group that's including cost as one of their criteria? Okay, there are certain generic design criteria that most projects have, but you don't have to always include it. If your project doesn't make sense to do a cost analysis, don't do a cost analysis. In this case, this is highly technological, so I would recommend a cost analysis, but that's not the same case for everybody. In saying that, you say that your design needs to be compact. Now, compact can mean compact to fit inside a pocket, compact to fit inside a bag, compact to fit inside a vehicle. Okay, you need to specify how compact. The best way to do that is give it size requirements. And a big part of your project is the camera. So you also have to mention design criteria. What are the camera specifications? Is that clear, guys? Okay. Now the possible solutions. Here you start talking about the different materials that you want to use. The possible solutions are a place where you start to come up with a design concept, visual design concept. How will it look? In our design, in our unit, that's what we're most interested in, okay? How will it look? Now you said back in your design brief that it has to have 4 legs and 4 propellers. Be that as it may, there's a lot of different configurations for where you could put those 4 legs and where you could put those 4 propellers. I would have liked to see some kinds of drawings or sketches of how you think these drones will look, rather than talking about all the aspects that they will have. Okay, these are fine to put inside your design concept development. So if you were to include this information, and you still can, you can put it under the topic concept development. This is a separate subtopic. Not necessary for everybody to do this, but if you want to include these bits of information, I would recommend that you put it under the topic design concept development. From there, you go into possible solutions, and then from possible solutions, evaluation, and then evaluation, final solution. Is that clear?
It's true.
Okay. So that brings me to the end of my assessment of this particular project. I think that you guys have a very good base to build from. So don't get me wrong if I give a lot of criticism. I think you guys have really done a lot of research, and you have a really strong base to build your design from. And I'm very, very excited to see how your final solution looks like, and how you develop the detailed drawings, and how you bring it all together to give a final solution that's fitting the problem. But there are just certain things along the way where I feel like you've lost your focus on the project. I feel like you've already decided what the end solution will be, and you've forgotten all the design concept steps leading up to that. So my main recommendation for you guys would be to go back and have a look at the design process, especially the concept design development. Okay, I am planning to upload a video talking about the formatting and how you can do formatting using MS Word. Are you all familiar with Microsoft Word and the different functions that it provides? Okay, good. So I'll just do it for those who aren't too familiar with Microsoft Word, who, understand high school, haven't really used Microsoft Word for anything. So, and to be honest, I didn't learn any of this stuff in my first or second year. And looking back on it now, I would have found it very useful if I had. So I will hopefully get that video up for you guys. I just want to show you an example of a design project that I worked on back in my third year of studies. It's basically a design project, and it's following the same format that you guys are following, maybe just a bit more in detail. Okay, are you all able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so our project, we had to design a robot for the Robocon competition. And my specific component was a picking arm to pick up the rugby ball and load it into a passing mechanism. So I had to do a design report only on the picking mechanism. So started off with a problem statement. Luckily for us, our problem was already clearly defined. So I just had to talk about my specific problem, which I had to overcome. I developed the design specifications, both from the rules given by Robocon, as well as the rules as to how it would interact with other components. So for you guys, it's basically the same thing: problem identification, design criteria, and then literature review. So for our literature review, we broke it down into the two main components of our picking mechanism, which would be the gripper and the arm. So we started looking at different arm designs. And what I mean by use of pictures, you can briefly explain in a short paragraph and then add pictures. It always helps to add an extra layer of information. Different types of designs, and then picking mechanisms were the main focus of our research. So we looked into different designs of grippers, how they come about, how they work, their function, the basic principles behind their use. Please note that all images have a caption, a figure number and a caption, which was then used to develop a list of figures in the final report. So yes, our literature review has a lot of pictures, not too many words. I mean, it's a bit lengthy, but it's a lot of pictures, and it effectively gets the message across as to what we're trying to design and to what purpose. Then, like I was just giving the example with Ethan and them's report, design concept ideas. This is the concept development, basically. And in this project, I use the term idea generation, but it's the same thing, concept development, where you say, from my research, I've taken all these bits of information, and now I can use that to then compile and compress down into the best possible solutions moving forward. So this is just an explanation as to how we dissected each one of those bits of information from a literature review, and then which parts we want to take out and we want to incorporate in our final designs or our possible solutions. Okay. And then from there, we can start talking about possible solutions. So these were possible solutions we mocked up. You guys have to do hand sketches. For this one, we used a software called SolidWorks. And we developed all of our possible solutions. And then we did a critical design analysis, which is basically talking about how it's supposed to work, what principles it uses, and which bits of information from the literature review did we use to develop our possible solutions. So for possible solution 1, this is how it works. Possible solution 2, this is how it works. 3, and so on and so forth. And inside here, we also give justification for the number scores that we give in the weighted decision matrix. Okay. So in our case, the number value that we multiplied by, the total score that we multiplied by, that was then edited from this version. Okay, this was just the first draft. The second draft had a more detailed weighted decision matrix, but I'm just trying to show you guys the steps that were taken and that how similar it is to the one that you're expected to do. And then final solution was decided on, and this is all the analysis steps. But up until here, it's very similar to what we're expecting from you guys. Okay. So I hope this session was helpful, and to the group that I assessed today, thank you very much for your submission. I really appreciate the amount of work that you guys have put in. I hope you take on board my comments. And if you make the changes and you want to check with me again, feel free to send it back to me. I'll be happy to review and then send it back to you guys. I won't set a deadline for any of this. And that's the same for all of my tutorial sessions. If once I've sent back the feedback, you want to make the changes and then check again, feel free to send it to my email. I'll be happy to have another look and give further feedback if necessary. But I just want to make sure that I'm as helpful as possible and that you guys truly understand the design process. Are there any questions? Okay, if you can just leave your ID number in the chat so that I can take attendance. Thank you very much for attending today. I will hopefully get your feedback back to you by the end of the weekend, and hope to see you next week. Naka.